Hi everyone. I am here today to finally get around to telling my birth story with my second. I want to give a little brief backstory of my first labor and birth, just to give you an idea of why I chose what I did and how it was really different for me. So with my first, I was in labor for 37 or 36 hours, and I was planning a home birth, and after some 20 some hours of labor, my midwife finally arrived to tell my husband, if we don't go to the hospital, she's going to die. That was an exaggeration by far, because as we arrived at the hospital, I got on the table and the doctor checked me and he said, "What are you doing here?" And I had to stay. So they recognized some heart tones going up and down with the baby, and so they wanted me to stay. And at one point, they saw a heart tone that was alarming enough for them to yell, "C-section! Get everyone in here now!" So I'm here, been at the hospital for an hour, laying on the bed, not even an hour, like maybe 40 minutes. And barely even have met my nurses yet or anything, and all of a sudden there's 2 doctors and a NICU team and like 5 nurses and my midwife, and my husband and I are just like, oh my gosh, what just happened? Like, I just went from this really long labor at home, stalling, to coming to the hospital and having them tell me everything is fine and that I probably should just go home. And then, oh, time for a C-section, which thankfully did not happen. Instead, I think my midwife talked to the doctor and he said, "I'm sorry that we bombarded you, first of all. We're going to recommend that you have an epidural, and then hopefully that will get your labor to move forward." So they broke my water, I had an epidural, took a nap for 3 hours, and then I had enough strength to be able to deliver my baby. An epidural was never in my plans, just because I was totally terrified of the needle going into my spine, and also really afraid of getting a migraine because I have really awful migraines just normally. So those were the reasons why I didn't want to get an epidural, but it turned out fine. The epidural worked. So I experienced all of my labor up until that pushing point. I didn't feel anything for all of that. He was born in like 2 pushes, and it was all fine and dandy. We were fine, but my care in the hospital was really not what I wanted. My nurses were really mean and like pippy with me. They just wanted me to, they didn't want me to hold my baby. They swaddled him up, and I just remember he kept getting out of the swaddle, and then another nurse would come and re-swaddle him, and then they would argue about how they were swaddling him wrong, and they wouldn't even let me try or just like let me nurse him for as long as he wanted to. So it really just was, and I just remember I was just like covered in blood, and nobody would help me go to the shower to rinse off, or nobody would help me clean off. And I just remember like finding blood in my fingernails and blood on me, and just thinking like, why wouldn't anyone help me clean myself off before I had to go home and do it all myself. And then returning home to what would have been my amazing home birth, the milk was left out and there was food in the oven that luckily the oven was turned off, but it was just a complete mess and really bad start to my postpartum. My midwives kind of just cut me off. They came for the newborn checkup and that was it. So it really was not the experience that I was looking for the first time around, and what cascaded to that happening was that I didn't really understand the difference between midwives and medwives, which maybe if you're interested in the home birth community, you kind of hear those terms bouncing around. My midwives were really medicalized, and I didn't understand that at all. And what I was looking for was a truly traditional midwife. I was studying herbalism, and I was confident that I could have a baby at home, but I was totally blindsided by that. And obviously my husband was totally freaked out when my midwife literally said to him, "If we don't go to the hospital, your wife is going to die." And I didn't know that actually when we went to the hospital. I had no idea that's what she said to him, but looking back on it, I could see how that was like sort of traumatic for him. But so the second time around, we went with a midwife again, and we were just completely blessed to find a midwife that lived only 10 minutes away, and she was absolutely a traditional midwife, and I just can't believe this woman. She's so amazing. She's an herbalist, so my first appointment with her, she gave me this huge gallon-sized bag of an herbal tea that she blended herself, and throughout the rest of my trimester, she gave me the herbal tea and even nursing tea, and really she just said, what do you want? And I said, I want to have a midwife that's not afraid of COVID, and I want a midwife who is just gonna be there to hold space, basically. Like, I wanted it to be hands off. I got to refuse all the testing, and really just did measurements with the baby, and that was excellent. So leading up to my birth, my last appointment with her, I believe, was around 38 weeks. She said, should we make an appointment for 40 weeks? And I said, no, let's not worry about it. I'll call you. And so then she was confident that I knew what was up, and I told my husband that my labor was not starting until my water broke, which didn't happen with my first. They broke my water at the hospital. So I knew that if my water broke, that really meant things were happening. And I didn't know that my water was going to break or not. I was having contractions for days up until my water broke, but it was nothing that made me get up off my seat. Like, it was just like, oh yeah, well, here we go again. It was really funny. I put my son to bed. We ate a huge dinner. I put my son to bed, and our normal routine. And then my husband went to go to the gym and go to a spring where he fills up the water. And he said that on his way to the gym, he felt like he should go fill up our water jugs before he went to the gym. So he went, got the water, and then he said on his way back he was just going to go straight to the gym, but he just had a feeling that I needed some water. So he came in the door carrying these big jugs of water. He set the jugs of water down, and he came into the kids' playroom and talked to me, and as we were talking, my water broke on the carpet. In the only place in our entire house where there's actually carpet is where, of course, my water broke. And I said, I think you're gonna need to stay home. And I also said, can you hand me a towel? And there was just this huge stack of full-size towels that I had prepared for my home birth next to him, and he grabs this little tiny baby washcloth and hands it to me, and I was like, I'm gonna need a bigger towel. So that was it. There was like, it was like, not like, oh, the movie style where it's just like, but it was like a pop and then water, and then I was like, oh, that's awesome. Okay. And then contractions started picking up, but I really just like want to point this out in my in this video, because, you know, when you're a kid, nobody tells you, hey, maybe childbirth won't hurt. So my labor, similar to my first, with my first, it was just really, really long, and I didn't know what to expect. So I was a little afraid, and I was extremely fatigued by the end. But personally, I don't feel like contractions hurt. What I feel like is they make me feel sick. Like I'm just like obviously it doesn't feel good, but I would not say the word that comes to my head is pain. It's more like, oh, like I'm sick. So, then contractions started picking up. I called my midwife like an hour after my water broke and just said, hey, my water broke, but, I don't need you to come yet. So that was at midnight when I called her. And then I just labored. I needed my exercise ball, birth ball, just to lean up against, and then needed my husband to bring me water. I had him go to the store to buy me Gatorade because I was like, there's no way that I can just get down plain water. Like, I needed some flavor. So he actually got this kind of Gatorade that doesn't have any colors. It just has like regular sugar in it. And it was good. I wouldn't drink it not in labor, because after labor I was like, oh, this stuff is awful. But it really helped me get along, like having some sugar to help give me energy. It was midnight, and then I just kind of labored. I tried to go to sleep, but I just couldn't go to sleep. I was like too excited, I think. And it was labor. Like, that was it. It was happening. And then finally my husband had to blow up the birth pool, and I bought this pool on Amazon. It's like this kids pool, basically. They call it the fishy pool. And I was really lucky to get it on Amazon when it was only $30. And I bought what was recommended as the pump that supposedly goes with the pool, but it didn't have the correct piece to actually blow up the main part of the pool. The only part it blew up was the bottom, like the floor of the pool. And so here is my dear husband, like, this is not gonna work. He's like angry because he's been trying all these different things and it's just not working. And he even considered like blowing it up with his mouth, but it just wasn't working. And he was asking me in between contractions, like, do we have a hair dryer? And I'm like, no, we don't have a hair dryer. Do we have anything that blows air out? And then I remembered that a few months ago I bought this shop vac secondhand and it was broken. It only would blow air out. So I was like, the shop vac! And so here's my husband goes out to the garage in 2 feet of snow, has to go get the shop vac, and thank God the shop vac worked. He had the birth pool in the kitchen, which it was supposed to be in the living room. And he's blowing it up because we were hoping that it would be quieter in there to not wake up my son. And so he's blowing up the birth pool and it is so loud. He kept turning it off saying, it's too loud. And I'm like, yeah, it is so loud. This old shop vac was just extremely loud, but it blew up the birth pool and that's all that mattered. And my son did not wake up. So we set up the birth pool. I put plastic all over our hardwood floors and we set it up, and then my husband started filling up the water, but I didn't want to get in the water because I kept thinking to myself, it's going to stall my labor, it's going to stall my labor. So I waited until the absolute, I just waited until I couldn't just stand being on the hardwood floor any longer to get in the pool. And what really helped me through labor was having a heating pad on my back. I didn't have any back labor at all, but just the contractions made me feel so sick. And what I don't even know, I feel so, it's like a revelation or something. I don't even know. It was remarkable how I handled through some of that labor. It was really intense at some points, and I was just looking back at it, I'm like, how did I do that? But I did it because I did the work, and I trusted my body to know exactly what to do. And I really, God, it was really amazing, and I would totally do it again, not just looking back at it. But finally I got in the water. At 3 a.m. I got in the water, and it was cold because we just kept running out of hot water. So my husband was boiling water on all 4 of the burners, and he said he was also microwaving water, which made me laugh so hard. So every once in a while he would come and pour boiling water next to me, and I literally was just pour it on me. I just wanted boiling, scalding water on me, because the heat just helps so much. Just feel comforted. And then finally, every once in a while, the hot water on the sink would start working again. And we had this hose connected to our kitchen sink. And it was so nice because I could just hold the hose over me. But then the pool was starting to get really full, and I kept getting nervous. Oh my God, it's going to overflow right on my hardwood floors. So my husband had to scoop out 5-gallon pails and bring them into the bathtub, and it was so funny. Finally, around 4:30 in the morning, we called my midwife and said, you should probably come soon. I don't know. She came at 6:30 in the morning, and I asked my husband to get me a mask because I was worried that if I saw the sunlight come in the windows that labor would stall, because with my first, that's what happened. My labor stalled as soon as the midwife got there. It just completely stopped. So I was like, oh my gosh, if I see the sun, my labor's gonna stall. And it was so intense at that point. I could feel him moving down into the birth canal. I could feel him go through below my pubic bone and start to go down. And so I was like, we can't stop now. There's no way. So I had my husband give me a mask. It was the only thing I could think of that would go over my eyes. So I was blindfolded for most of my labor. So my midwife comes in and she's like, she didn't talk to me at first because she understood that I just wanted to be alone for most of it. And so she came and just talked to my husband a little bit. And then finally when I said hi, I have blindfolded, so I have no idea where she is. I'm just like, hi, how are you? Totally blindfolded. So she laughed, and it was really just lightened up the moment. She checked baby's heart tones, and then she went in my kitchen. She made me labor aid, Gatorade, but organic and really delicious. She went and sat in the kitchen and did her notes for the next, let's see, she got there at 6:30 in the morning. She didn't come back in to the living room. She could see me from the kitchen, but she did not come back in until about 8:30 in the morning. When I started to feel pushy, which I never felt with my first. I had no idea what it really felt like to kind of start that fetal ejection reflex. And so then she came in just to like, tell me to consider what kind of position I wanted to get into. And I told her beforehand that I was kind of afraid about pushing because with my first, I didn't feel that sensation, so I was really worried, like, oh my god, I'm gonna feel the ring of fire, or oh my god, I have no idea like how to push or what this is gonna feel like. And so I told her that beforehand so that when I did come to push that I wanted her support. So she came and told me, just like asked me how I was feeling. And I was on my hands and knees laboring for most of it or leaning over the pool. But when it came to pushing, I was like, I want to be on my back. And in between contractions, I had just listened to a birth blog of someone saying how their midwife told them to try and sleep between contractions. And I remember my first labor stalled because I was so exhausted, so I kept telling myself I have to sleep between contractions. So I'd have a contraction and then literally roll over onto my back and float in the water, and then I would fall asleep and I would wake up snoring, or I would wake up to have a contraction. 1 second. Here's the star. So I would wake up to have a contraction between the floating. And that was so, honestly, such an amazing experience, like being like at the most intense physical exertion in my life, and then rolling over and falling asleep for just a minute or so, and then going back onto my hands and knees. So finally, when pushing came, I was just getting tired that I just stayed laying on my back through the contractions. And for a little while, the contractions actually spaced out. So they were like they weren't right on top of each other, but it was like about a minute apart. And then they started to space out so that I could have a longer nap in between. And oh, my husband is so sweet. He was like the best birth partner ever. Like, I don't even remember. He said that there was times where he was like, do you want some chocolate? And I was like, get out. And I was like really mean, but I don't remember. He said that throughout it all, the worst thing I said was, I don't like this. Labor sucks. He's like, he said I was so calm and like it was just silly. But when he said, do you want some chocolate? I said, get out. Because I was like, that's the last thing I want right now. Just let me push out this baby. So if you remember, my son was still home sleeping in the bed, and our plan, I don't know, I wanted him to be there, but I knew that I couldn't be at his attention, and I needed my husband to like rub my back and just hold on to me. And then my midwife was obviously not responsible for my son. So I told my husband, I was like, we have to get him out of here. It's 8:30. His mom was going to come pick him up at like 10 or something. And I was like, this baby is coming. I can't push him out if the other one wakes up. So it took my 2.5-year-old, he was still asleep, which was like totally rare for him to still be asleep at 8 o'clock. We called my mother-in-law, and she came, and my husband went and put my son's coat and snow boots on, and he was like, what are we doing? And my husband said, oh, you're going to grandma's. And then he got really excited, but then he realized, no boots on the bed, and he just had a breakdown crying because he said we always tell him, but no shoes on the bed, and my husband was putting his snow boots on. So my husband put his hood up over his head so he wouldn't see, because out the bedroom door was me in the birth pool. And so he put his hood up, and he's like, okay, grandma's here, and they go walking out to the front door, and my son says, Dad, there are scissors on the floor, because my midwife had laid out all of her, like, any tools that she needed. So she had the scissors to cut the umbilical cord on the floor. And my husband just says, oh, that's dangerous. I'll clean them up. And then just kept walking. And right as he got to the front door, he says, where's Mama? And then Grandma was right there on the other side. And then my mother-in-law says, you're gonna be a big brother today. And then my son was like, what? Because we talked about it the night before, but he didn't know what was going on exactly. And so Oh, it was just like precious. And then my husband was like, oh, look it, grandma's got a new toy for you, or like tried to distract him, and then it totally worked. So then he went away with my mother-in-law, and that was at 9 a.m. Okay, these times are important. It was 9 a.m. The sun was glowing in through my huge picture window in my living room, and I'm floating in the birth pool, and I'm like, you gotta get the camera out. And so I had my husband set up the camera. He had no idea where the tripod was, so he was like stacking books on top of the bookshelf and like positioning the camera, and he kept taking pictures, and my midwife was like, you're gonna want to just start filming now. So we started filming, and it was so cool to have it on video. At one point, I remember with my firstborn, I really wanted to be able to feel his head emerging, like with my hand, and I had to hold my own legs up, like in pushing, like my nurse wasn't holding my leg enough. And so, of course they make you be flat on your back when you have an epidural in the hospital. So it was so uncomfortable, but I couldn't reach down, because if I reached down, my leg would totally just fly and kick the doctor. So I couldn't get that. I didn't have that experience of being able to touch his head coming out. And I really wanted that with the second. So I told my midwife that, and I didn't even realize it. She just said, you can touch your baby's head now. And the contractions I was having, I was just trying to let him go. Like, I was just trying to let him emerge. I was just trying to let him come out on his own without pushing, like without straining, and knowing, like, try not to let all of my energy go in a push that wasn't worth it yet. And I also, just with tearing, like sometimes you just get too eager to push the baby out. So all those factors were in my head, and finally my midwife just says, and I had pushed maybe twice. She kept telling me, okay, when you push, roar like a bear. And I was just thinking to myself, what in the world does a bear sound like? I have no idea. She should have said lion or something else. But so I'm like, grr, like that's what a bear says, right? And that was just a funny point where I was like, I don't know what a bear sounds like. But yeah, so it was just that, like what they say, like, oh, like you're trying to poop is pretty much what they say, is the motion that you go through with your muscles. And then also, I think she told me to hold my breath, or maybe she said hold your breath. I don't know, something like that. But finally she just calmly said, you can feel his head now. And sure enough, I reached my hand down, and his hair was like the softest little, newborn babies' heads are the softest thing in the world. Coming out fresh, the soft little peach head is just the sweetest thing in the whole entire world. And so that was so exciting. And then I asked my husband to grab a mirror, and the only mirror he could find was this huge wicker mirror. I feel like I should show you. But he just had to hold it up and like point it down in the pool to show me, and it was so funny. But it was so amazing to see, and I don't know, like I didn't get to experience that with my first, so it was really cool to see what was going on. But then I needed my husband to hold my back, like hold my shoulders or something when he had to get back behind me, and we were filming, and I just let him come out, and then finally, his head was mostly out, but it was really just seemed really tough. I could feel his feet like kicking at the top of my uterus, like pushing himself down, like with his feet, and I could feel him moving his shoulders to get out. But I'm telling you, there was no ring of fire. There was no like pain. Like it was just like it obviously felt like there was something coming out of me, but it wasn't painful. It was just like emerging. Like I don't know how to describe it really. It was so like I was so euphoric in that moment. I was just like I was telling my husband, like, oh, I really want some cheesy focaccia bread right now. And then I could just feel his feet pushing against the top of my uterus and his shoulders moving. And I remember telling my midwife, like, this is so weird. I can feel his shoulders moving. And then finally she had to tell me, she said, she asked me if I wanted her help. She's like, his hand is next to his face. And I had just been telling her a story about my friend who all 3 of her babies were born with their hand like this. So what that means is like it's a little more difficult to get them out because their hand is right here and their elbow kind of is like blocking them. So she is like, I'm gonna help you, if that's okay, I'm gonna help you a little bit. And I was like, just, yep, go ahead. And it turned out that not just one hand was like this, both of his hands, I can't show you, but both of his hands, one hand was grabbing onto his ear like this, and the other hand was right here. And so he came out with double, they call it a nuchal hand, so double nuchal hands, both hands up by his face, and it was really hard when I tried to reach down to pull him up. It was hard to, I don't know, once those elbows came through, it was just like, he's out, and he was under the water, and I wanted to look at him, so then I had to take my freaking, I took my face mask, or my mask off, my eye mask off, when my husband brought the mirror over, but I was like looking down and I was trying to, I couldn't like get my hands up under his armpits, so I had my midwife like push his butt up onto me, and I had this towel covering me because I was really cold in the water, and then she's like trying to pull the towel off me so that we could get skin to skin, and I'm holding on to him and he's really slippery and all covered in vernix, and it was so amazing. And my husband told me this. He said that he was a little, like, he had a moment of fear, but then after his head came out, I said, he's here. And we didn't know if it was a boy or a girl, but my husband said that was just such an amazing moment. Like, I knew it was going to happen next. Like, I knew everything was going to be okay. And I just said, he's here, even though he wasn't totally born yet. So my husband said that brought him calm, and that was really sweet. And also just having my husband, like us being the team and having him be there for this birth that was way less traumatic than a first birth that we experienced together, where there's all these doctors and they're screaming C-section. So that was really, I don't know, probably healing for him and just in his lifetime, like having his mom tell him how awful it was to give birth, having this time around see, like, you know what, it doesn't have to be that way. And oh God, it was so amazing and so beautiful, and I feel silly almost talking about it because it really was so remarkable. Like, how then right afterwards I was holding him and I just said, hi, I'm your mom, do you am I everything you wanted? And he just looked at me right in the eyes, and it was so beautiful and so amazing. And oh gosh, and then I remember I said to him, that wasn't so bad. Let's do that. Like, I can do that again. And so it was just it was so sweet. And I totally will do it again. Like, it was really amazing. And then right afterwards, we waited until his cord, I don't even remember the placenta coming. Came right out. I don't know. It just came out. With this placenta, I really just wanted to look at it. So I had my husband bring a bowl, and I was worried the bowl wasn't big enough. But the bowl he brought was actually this really beautiful bowl. And now I have it in the cupboard, and every time I look at it, it makes me really happy because I just think of the placenta sitting in it. But I wanted him to take my picture of the placenta. My midwife was like, okay, but you've been in the pool for a while now. So I'm just like looking at the placenta and looking at my baby and like, wow, this is so amazing. And it had been, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes before we got the cord. And my midwife said, okay, I'm going to hold the cord here and here. Dad, you're going to cut. And so he was like, I don't know, I don't think he knew that he was going to cut the cord or something, so he was just like, oh, okay. And then he almost cut my midwife's finger. It was classic. But she was like, okay, not my finger, cut the cord. And then he's like, oops. So he cut the cord, and then we got the placenta, then he got to hold the baby, and I just said, I said, get naked, and he's like, okay, and then he started undoing his belt, and I was like, no, I meant take your shirt off. And he's like, I know. But he took his shirt off, and then he got to hold the baby skin to skin, and it was still all sticky and vernixy, and I think that was really special. Then I got out of the pool, and my midwife laid me down on the couch with a heating pad, and gave me this amazing labor aid tea, which was lemon juice and baking soda and salt, and I don't know, it was just the most delicious thing that I had tasted. Of course, I just had a beautiful baby boy who he turned out to be, and I had no idea. He was 9 pounds and 10 ounces, and like, you know, maybe that's not that big of a deal, but I am extremely petite. Like, I am I am short, and I used to be before baby. I was really tiny, skinny, and everybody always says like something, because my husband's cute, like he's really tall and muscular. People always say like, oh, you're gonna break or something. And so when I found out he was 9 pounds 10 ounces, I was just like, that's impossible. You gotta weigh him again. He's only 8 pounds. And my midwife was like, that is a big baby. And he had a little devil chin, and he just had fat arms and fat legs already, big belly and everything. And we laid on the couch together, and he nursed in the sunshine, and it was just so amazing. And I took a selfie like to send to my mom, because she kept pestering me saying, you better tell me when he's born, because my firstborn, I didn't tell her. I didn't want her to come to the hospital right away, so I didn't tell anyone that he was born. And so I just texted her, he's here. And so the selfie I took was like literally the most beautiful picture of me that I've ever seen in my life, because I am so blissful and my cheeks are rosy and I have absolutely no makeup on, but I just look so happy. And that's a picture that, even though I took it on a 2 megapixel like flip phone, it was just, I'll have to share it, but it was really beautiful. And just the moment was so beautiful, and everything was so amazing. And I just can't believe it, like how distorted our ideas of birth have become after all these years. My mom telling me when I was a kid, like, she would say, it's the most painful thing you'll ever feel in your whole life, but it will be worth it. And, you know, that has a positive spin on it, but both of my labors, although the first one was long, I didn't have that sense of pain. I thought, you know what, breaking my ankle hurt way more than this. Like, there was never a moment where I thought, like, this is so painful, oh my God. I just kept saying, thank you, body, thank you. You're doing the work, and I just am, like, still, after 6 weeks of this experience and just having completely natural labor and delivery, that, I trusted my body, and now my trust in my body and just the process and trust in nature and trust in God is so reiterated, because I had that experience, and I just wish I could tell everyone like how amazing it was, because maybe it will change someone else's mind. You know, I had to do so much work, inner work, like spiritually, mentally, telling myself that I am made for this. Like, I said that before, but did I believe it? And I do now, absolutely, but I do absolutely believe it now, you know. I'm not saying it was easy, but but as far as the fears that you have go, pain was not a fear that I should have ever had. And then also, I don't know, like, it just was really, yeah, it was amazing. I don't know. There was nothing to be afraid of. It all went so naturally and perfectly. And obviously that's not the story for everyone, but I believe that I took the steps where I knew that I wanted to be alone. I didn't want to be touched. I just wanted to be both me and my husband for most of my labor, and that I really needed a midwife there that I trusted, and that trusted me, and that trusted the birth process. Because my first midwives, I don't know if they didn't trust me or they don't trust the process of birth, but that was not how the relationship was going. And I'm really sensitive to people's energies. So I think that, you know, between laboring for as long as I felt I needed to alone, and then setting up the lighting and everything, and blindfolding myself, and just allowing myself to be alone, and obviously doing the work beforehand, and trusting the process, that's what led me to this, you know, perfect home birth, honestly. Like, there's nothing I would have changed about it, really. I am so grateful. But I feel this like a little bit embarrassed almost when people say, this is just everyone, you know. As soon as I told my mother-in-law the story, she just said, oh my God, you're so amazing, because when she had my husband, he weighed exactly the same. He weighed 9 pounds 10 ounces, just as my son did, and she elected a C-section because the doctors kept telling her, he's too big, he's not gonna fit, he's overdue, whatever. And she just kept saying, you're a superwoman, you're amazing. And I feel every time somebody tells me that, I'm like, yes, I am. But also I feel this like little bit of embarrassment, because I want better for women, where giving birth is not like a superhuman thing. And obviously, you know, you feel like that right afterwards. It really is amazing and all these things, but it's also completely natural and completely normal. And so part of me, like, maybe it's just like just this humbleness of me makes me want to say, oh no, I'm not. But I want better for women. I want better for moms to be able to trust in themselves more and just believe that their bodies are amazing and meant to do this, and that it's totally trust the process, trust yourself. It's really just a normal, natural thing that happens and has happened since the dawn of time, obviously. So there's just that little part of me that feels a little bit embarrassed when somebody tells me, like, oh my God, you're so amazing, you had a home birth, because it wasn't that hard. I don't know, like, it was so normal and natural, and I just want that for other people, and I want other women to be able to experience that, or at least have the belief in themselves that they can experience that. So that is my birth story with my second, and I'm so proud to have done this in less than an hour. It was really a quick birth. I mean, quick as far as my standards go after having a almost 40-hour first labor. I don't remember even how many hours it was. Born at 9:40 in the morning, so 9 hours of labor. That was like quick for me. And then my son came home that night to visit and see his baby brother for the first time, and it was absolutely blissful. Like, it was just love at first sight. And then my son snuggled up against, we all slept together in our family bed. My 2-year-old, he just snuggled up against the newborn's butt, just like cuddled his butt and fell asleep on my leg, and it was really cute. And just a memory that I will forever treasure along with this birth story. And I just want to I just want to go back to my pre-labor self with my firstborn and tell her this story and say, that was you did that. So I don't know. I hope you enjoyed listening to this story, but yeah, it was awesome. So it can be awesome. Take care, everyone.